Well, perfectly.
Whoa!
Okay, maybe not perfectly. But
Whoa, not perfectly? Whoa.
okay, so very well, but needs improvement.
Let's
No,
devil's
I don't know.
advocate this for you.
Very well, but needs improvement. That's why.
Yeah, just... Welcome back to another episode of Under the Influence. This is Season 5, Episode 10. Woo! 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 We're almost halfway through this season.
Almost halfway.
And finally, we have a guest on. This is a
done it.
problem. Actually, no. I wasn't really counting it, but we have had the satellite guest, Dr. Matt Canary, zoomed in. Remember that? But then last episode, literally last week, we had Producer Shibs in chair.
Producer Shibs.
I totally overlooked Producer Shibs as if he was not a guest on the show.
Yeah.
What a jerk.
Yeah.
What a
For
jerk.
some reason,
Me, not Producer Shibs.
we
Not
allow.
Producer Shibs.
Yeah. Producer
I'm
Shibs
getting
is
some-
a jerk.
He had some head shakes out there. He's really disappointed. But interestingly enough, Producer Shibs is not producing right now. Again, we are joined by our other producer in training who... Basically, you probably haven't noticed he's in training because he's doing a great job. We have the Bard himself, Mr. Rizzler.
Woo! Round of applause.
My little brother Joel. But no, more importantly right now, we do have a guest. This is technically a returning guest, but you've never seen him before.
It's true.
No, you have.
Season 2.
On the wedding episode.
On the wedding episode.
Ooh, the photos.
Yeah, the photos. But you've never seen him here sitting as a
Live
guest,
in person.
live for us, not for the viewer. But he has been on the show. When we were audio only back in Season 2, we had Mr. Carson Pemble here on the show. And this is Carson Pemble.
Hello.
Has your life
Thank you guys.
changed at
Thank
all
you guys.
since you were last on?
Yes, dramatically.
It has.
I was married last time,
Yeah,
but I
you
did
were.
not have a kid,
You didn't
which is kind of crazy.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. He didn't have a
So now I've got a
That's
kid.
crazy.
I've got a little daughter. She is like 15, almost 15 months now.
Oh.
Which is crazy.
I was like,
15
time,
years old.
time
15.
flies.
No, time's a lot slower for her because she's actually a leap year baby. And
Whoa.
so,
Oh, yeah.
4 times slower?
yeah, kind of crazy.
That's nuts.
That is crazy. I keep forgetting. She's a leap day.
Leap day.
And
her cousin is also a leap day baby. Born the same exact day,
dude,
couple hours apart, same exact hospital.
it
was
is crazy.
Absolutely crazy.
That's nuts.
Crazy already to be a leap day baby. Crazy to have
A cousin.
a cousin that's a leap day baby.
Yeah.
Of the same leap day as
Yeah,
well.
of the same
It
leap
could
day.
have been
4 years
later.
earlier or later.
And then it could have been within, they were 1 year apart,
Yeah.
How would they both
4
be
years
leap days?
apart.
Oh, 1 year apart.
But they're actually like 4 years apart. And then, you can make all the jokes.
Yeah.
You could make all those jokes, but you shouldn't.
It's a little unfair.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay.
No, you could make them. Yeah. No, they're not one of those kinds of jokes that we talked about before the episode that we aren't making.
Fair. Yeah.
yeah.
There is a limitation of what jokes should be shared.
Right.
Which ones
Yeah.
should
We had a rundown before we started the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carson's a real loose cannon. So
Very
what he
loose
was
cannon.
allowed to say, what he's not allowed to say, no, I don't think that's true at all.
We had to muzzle him.
No, we have Levi
just
on the
had
show
to
every
ask.
episode, so
Yeah,
Carson
I
will be
know.
fine.
If Levi's here, generally safe. The bar is pretty high.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something else. Like, that's so mean. The bar is generally pretty high, yes. Yeah,
It's
Carson.
too high for me to jump over.
Carson, you're one of our oldest friends. I mean, you're one of my oldest friends.
No.
I mean, thinking about Levi and I say all the time, we've known each other 12, 13 years.
But I've known this guy for
But you,
Little
that's what I was
bit
going to say.
longer.
I've known
Almost
you
double that time.
same amount of time, but Levi has known you
almost double.
almost double that time. You guys have known each other basically since birth.
Since first grade.
Almost, yeah.
Birth isn't, or first grade isn't almost birth.
No. It's not almost birth, but it's almost double.
How old are
On the
fifth
time that I
graders? First graders,
remember of my life, most of it's with Levi.
Yeah.
Whoa!
Which is kind of crazy to think about.
That is crazy.
Most of our conscious
Most of
life.
my adult life, I would say with you. But
Now, were we close friends all that time? Absolutely not.
no.
Well,
No, hated
absolutely
each other.
not.
We didn't hate each other. We
Really?
just were super close friends.
Let's unpack that.
Yeah.
Why did you guys hate each other at the beginning? At 5 years old, why
we were
did you hate
in
each other?
different cliques.
Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was the stabbing incident.
There was the
See,
stab.
that
Wait a second.
did put a little divide.
Yeah.
There
in
was a
friendship.
stabbing in first grade?
This is how we start the podcast episode. We
Yeah.
just dive straight
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
So in first grade, we did this little thing.
School stabbings. That's what we're
Yeah,
covering
we
today.
did this. We did this little thing
Elementary school stabbings.
where we would test how much pain you could tolerate.
Yeah, guys being guys.
Yeah.
Dude,
And the
dude,
girls
dude.
were
Stupid
in
stuff.
on this as well.
Is this the game where you sit?
No,
in
I remember
a circle
specifically
select
with
women.
your
Select
legs open
women.
and a ball that you throw?
No,
Oh,
no.
that was later.
That's another pain
In
tolerance
this, we
game.
would take pencils and sharpen them and then press them and then see how like long and hard you could press them into your skin before
wow.
you're like,
You know.
Psychotic almost.
kind of.
No, I did it too. I was homeschooled and I did that. So
So, but I was an absolute wimp at that, first grade.
really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
No, and in first grade, I hadn't, reached my zenith of constant pain that I have to deal with.
What
So-
a way direction to
crazy.
take that in. That's not what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say I had yet to reach my full level of machismo that I've achieved now, being such a tough guy.
That too.
But no, you went constant pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's rough.
But
Yeah.
but during that time, I was a super wimp about it. I was also like, I had basically had two friends in first grade, and so I sharpened a pencil
Long story short.
To make friends.
to get revenge. This was
This is sounding more and more like the stories you hear in the news all the time.
yeah.
To get revenge on the people that wouldn't be my friends.
I mean,
I
basically,
stabbed
sharpened
them.
a pencil.
Yeah.
I sharpened a pencil to where there was like an inch of lead, and then I stabbed 3
Girl.
kids.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
Which was
including a
sharp.
girl.
Yeah, because I didn't know were you a victim of
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Whoa.
It was Carson, the girl that he liked.
This was crazy. Yeah.
The girl that they
jealous of their love.
Yeah.
If I can't have him, neither can she.
And then another cool guy
Another cool guy. Another victim.
Oh, I always thought that. All right, never mind.
that I only stabbed the girl.
No. Not the girl I thought that you stabbed. I thought you stabbed Maddie.
No, Maddie
just-
wasn't even going to school at that
Oh,
point.
Yeah.
okay. Wow.
No.
I've just always heard the story so much. Wow, I've got an eyelash that's poking me in the eye. I've always heard the story, and I remember her talking about it a lot, or like ridiculing you for it. So I always assumed she had been there.
No.
But,
Well, no, but it was like a big thing that my parents didn't end up finding out about until middle school.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well, that's fascinating.
My
Statute
parents,
of
my
limitations. They
parents
would've told
didn't know until I talked to Mr. Keepers, and Mr. Keepers knew about it.
Oh.
And when Mr. Keepers had
did
only been there for
nothing.
like a couple years,
Yeah.
And then I went home and I said something about it to my mom, and she was like, "You stabbed kids?" And I was like, "You didn't know,
bro, all
I
the
ain't
time.
no snitch.
Because
know?
all that
On my own.
Because all that happened was I got taken out into the hallway, and Mrs. Horner was just like,
How dare you?
You
can't,
can't
do
do
that. Yeah.
and I was like, "Okay,
Yeah. We were kind of violent kids early on.
yeah."
It's kind of,
Yeah, Christian school.
you know.
Don't spare
we
the
grew out
rod,
of it.
it
We
says.
grew out of it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, a lot of that.
Anyway, yeah.
No,
So maybe
yeah.
there was a little
so-
bit of divide in our
but
friendship because of
there was a
that.
little bit of a divide, but eventually,
We overcame that.
by
Started
one
to
of
hang out
the
more.
what was it? The retreats that we went on at the school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Probably middle
WVCS
school
does
retreat,
middle school and high school retreats. It's like right at the beginning of the school year. I think it's genius because, and I've said this before because of my experience at the school. Like I felt awkward and like I didn't have any friends because I didn't yet because I had been homeschooled right before high school, and then I came in and I was supposed to just adapt into your guys' class.
Yeah.
And the thing that helped me make friends was that high school retreat.
Yeah.
And also breaking my leg at the high school retreat.
Yeah, that I missed both of
Yeah.
the first ones for high school, which put me at a disadvantage.
Oh,
Yeah.
freshman and sophomore
freshman
year.
and sophomore year.
You missed those retreats.
Yeah.
But it is a genius idea to be like, for new students and
Yeah.
existing students
Oh,
to be
yeah.
like, hey, right after the first day of school, we're all going to go camping together or whatever. And everybody, you start the year off right with some chapel services and things like that. And it's super fun. And then having a fun time to make friends. And then you feel like, oh, you've all been on this experience together. And now let's do school.
That's the big part. I mean, it's hard to make friends when you're just stuck in class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you're out there actually making memories, and doing things with each other, it's so much easier, especially for middle schoolers and high schoolers. I think that's huge.
That's a good point.
Yeah, locking them in a small room.
Yeah.
It's a luxury that a smaller school, like a Christian school like that, can has, because a public school with a bunch of people you can't really do that. Like a bunch of students all go on this retreat. So
Yeah.
it's a benefit of being a smaller school and getting to do something like that. Have we ever talked about we definitely have, I feel like.
About what we did.
I don't know if Carson knows this, but like that we started a tradition that has carried on. At
did
the
you know?
retreat.
I
You
am
know
aware.
that?
I'm
Okay,
aware,
you're
yes.
aware.
Okay.
Have we talked about that on the podcast?
I don't know, but it would
Well, Levi was at Multiply School. It got talked about, and so when I
really?
rolled into
how did
Multiply
that come-
School, dude, when I rolled into Multiply School as a lecturer, one of the guys looks at me and goes, "I don't trust you at all. You poop on other people's poop." And I'm like, "What?"
After I told that
crazy.
story, I was like, it was,
You
I don't know.
exposed us,
We
Levi.
were talking about something that was
Yeah.
funny that happened like when people were younger, like traditions that got started. And then I brought that up. And then he just
He
turns
doesn't
to
know
me.
I'm going to be a lecturer at the school yet.
Yeah, I didn't know that. And then I was just sharing that, me and my best friend and a bunch of other people, we all did that thing. And no, but he just turns to me afterwards and is just like, you pooped on other people's poop? You poop on other people's poop?
Which is a true synthesis of the story, like a summary of the story, I suppose, is that is something that happened in that
It
story.
is factual.
We need to make sure we tell it.
Yeah, I was saying,
Because-
you're kind of just walking around it. You're leaving
are-
it like,
we are
Probably
You gotta
we
just-
probably told it when Hunter Hoover was on, but I can't be certain.
Hey,
I-
Carson, do you want to give your perspective on it?
Oh. Okay, my question is, did we actually start it, or were we the first victims of it?
No.
we start. So the initial
It is
thing
a
that brought it
revenge.
up,
It's a revenge
It is
story.
revenge, but it wasn't based on what happened. It was because a student from the grade under us rushed into our room because he's like, "There's somebody in our toilet."
That's right.
So then he blew up ours, and
That's
it
right.
smelled incredibly bad.
So like the rest of the night, we had just this reeking toilet. So
Yeah.
there's cabins, right? And they've got bunk beds and stuff in them, and in the back, and they're pretty small cabins.
Small cabins.
In the back, each one has a bathroom.
Yeah.
With a toilet. I don't even think they have. No, they have showers. Shower, toilet in it,
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
A sink too. Yeah.
Thankfully.
Yeah. He did, also not just a sink. He didn't blow up our sink. He blew up the toilet.
He just blew up the toilet. Yeah.
But this guy comes in. He's like, "Dude, I need to use the bathroom so bad," and we're all like, "Okay." This is going to clearly leave something lingering. So we told him no. He's like, "Dude, so bad. And there's somebody in ours. I need to use it now." No, he pushes past us. He's a big guy. He's able to push us onto the ground.
He is a massive man.
Yeah. I mean, they called him like Bear for a reason,
Yeah.
right? Like he's a tall, strong dude, pushes past us, goes into the bathroom, shuts the door, and we are all unfortunate victims and witnesses to what may have been a murder
Yeah.
in that bathroom.
Yes.
It was not a quiet
As at this time we were juniors and he was a sophomore, right? So yeah, the next year we all are like, dude,
we have to get
we're
back.
on our
It's
way
time
out.
for revenge.
It's time for revenge. We're on our way out. It's the last retreat.
What are they really going to do?
What are they going to do to get us back?
Yeah.
Which, spoiler, they never did anything. Actually, I feel like I remember two of them being like, "And that was our revenge on you." And we were like, "What did you even do?"
Yeah.
Like, it didn't
I
matter.
vaguely remember something like that.
I
but
remember Roland and maybe one of the other ones saying to us, "Hey, that was our revenge for what you did to us at the retreat." And we were like, "I didn't even notice you do anything."
Yeah.
I don't remember what they did. But I remember that conversation. But yeah, we're there and we're leading up to it in the car right there. A couple of us had talked ahead of time. I don't know if it was. I know that you and I. Had
I know
talked.
that we did because you were gonna bring.
I brought-
the laxative tea.
I brought Smooth Move tea. I brought blueberries.
That's right.
We drank that and ate that on the way there. But the plan was this: there's 6 of us guys. 5 of us decided to take part. And what we were going to do is go sneak into their room during the night game, crank the thermostat,
That's right.
and each
Forgot
take
about that component.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
a big component.
It's a big component.
a massive
an amplifier
piece.
of
an
everything.
amplifier of scent and experience. And we each took turns.
It got muggy in there.
You could say that again. Muggy and muddy. We each took turns using their restroom, using the toilet.
Yep.
And we had waited, some of us, for days. No, I'm just kidding. But all day, like you're going to have to go to the bathroom. Wait. Save it.
Yeah.
Take these laxatives.
We planned it all out because we knew that there was a game going on where
Always a night game.
everybody's out and not being watched.
Yeah.
So we would go in one at a time, and then you go out and get the next guy.
Yep.
Go out and get the next guy.
I think it's Bible Smugglers. It's like a night
Yeah.
game you play at
Yeah.
camp and stuff. And we're like, the teachers and the other students, they think we're playing this night game. Dude, we're playing a whole nother game.
Because nobody goes
playing
back
chess.
to to their cabin during this time because
Why
everybody's
would you? You'd lose the
playing
game.
the game. Yeah.
You're you know.
And so we knew that they weren't going to be there.
So yeah, we also had said like, okay, who's gonna go first and what's the order? And some people were like, one guy said, I'll only do it. Right? I remember Micah saying, I'll only do it if I can go first.
yeah,
He's like, I'm not gonna take part. And we're like, fine, you can go first. And then it was David, and then I think maybe
yeah.
I think it was you, and then Levi is my understanding. Because I think you're the one that flushed, right?
I think I accidentally flushed it.
And then it was
I think I ruined the entire
So
thing.
the whole thing was like, we're each going to go. We didn't consider how this could completely block up their pipes, but whatever. We were each going to go, and it was just going to fester for hours. And then whenever I retell this story, it's like the most disgusting thing ever.
It's pretty bad.
But as teenage boys, it's like, we're going to get them. You know, they ruined our bathroom. How can we ruin it more? And crank the heat. 5 guys all go dump in the toilet and leave it for them to find. You know, that was going to be the thing we did. The point of the story is we did that. Somebody halfway through did flush because I think like if we do this more, it's going to ruin the pipes.
Yeah.
So then what was left for them was just 2 guys. I was one of the last guys to use it. And then it's done, right? And then they're all like, it's disgusting. Oh, you're horrible.
You could smell it from outside of the cabins.
Horrible
It was
prank.
so bad.
But the point is, this horrible prank we go on living our lives, and we just always think back on it like we never really did crazy things. Honestly, our class, that's like one of the, I always look back and like, that's the craziest thing we ever did, you know, which is kind of lame
pooping
almost.
on your friend's poop.
Yeah, which is never how I ever thought of it until 10 years later, Kyler is like,
It's
you
just-
poop on other people's poop.
And it's just like,
So, regardless, we tell people that story every now and then, and we're telling Jude this story years later, and he goes, whoa, that was you guys?
That's crazy.
And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, seniors do that to the juniors every year. Dude, I had no idea. The lasting legacy we had on that school was apparently that.
Dude.
Wish it had been other things,
Oh
but
man, yeah.
but that was, and now, you know, Joel's gonna.
yeah, well, I will
Do us proud.
on the record, we don't recommend doing that.
Oh, no,
on the record, if you're a WVCS student, this is dangerous.
Be respectful.
I'm a youth pastor.
You are a
And
youth
all of my
We
students.
do not encourage this.
No.
Jerry would never.
No, all of my students, if you're listening to this episode, I do not do that. Do not do that.
Good
But
call.
maybe
Good
for you,
disclaimer.
it's if it is something that you've heard happens every year, maybe it's cool for you to know that it was your youth pastor that started it.
Your youth pastor and youth leader were.
Don't tell the school. Every year they're like making a disclaimer. We're going on the treat. Nobody do the poop thing in the bathrooms. And all the kids like, we know who started that now.
Yeah.
Man.
But yeah, Carson was part of that.
Yeah, cool.
Whoops.
Good.
Whoops. So yeah, what was your perspective on that?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
were you like,
Did
why
you
are
enjoy
we
that?
doing this? What?
No, at the time I was like, dude, let's do this. Like,
Yeah,
this,
I
this is
remember.
cool. It's like you got to get revenge.
Dude,
You know, I remember how bad it was. You know, being the victim of him. Like, the only way is to return the favor.
But you got to go harder.
Yeah,
Because with
And we
revenge,
did.
you got to finish it. You can't do something of equal measure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then it's
Now, that's
never
not
ending.
biblical.
It's actually unbiblical.
Turn the
Op-
cheek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just turned.
Yeah. Or even if you were
cheeks.
going to say eye for an eye, but we didn't eye for eye. They eyed, we head.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like they took an eye, we took a head. So we ended it.
I mean, we ended it from our end, when they tried to get revenge back.
But
we
yet
didn't
we
even know that
started
it
it.
happened.
We ended something for us,
Yeah.
but then we started something as a tradition.
Which is a rough one.
That was. Yeah, I kind of feel really bad for a lot of the grades that have to,
Yeah.
put up with that.
Here's a question, totally off topic. Carson asked me this beforehand. I said we'll save for the podcast. What was your A1 question?
Oh, the question was, this is off topic. Starting a new conversation.
So, Carson, so we've talked a little bit about how the 3 of us know each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
We went to school together. We were in the same class.
Yep.
You guys went to school together way longer than I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Super cool. Always been jealous, but whatever. Yeah. No, but how are you involved at Christian Influence?
Yes. I am a lurker in the Discord. Definitely someone that will just watch the memes, see kind of the discussions being had.
Cool.
A lot of times I'll just go to the Pastor Hank or the Brother Hank now, and just kind of see what people ask, honestly. Because
Really?
I honestly like reading
didn't know
those
that.
It is,
and just going through those.
It is cool.
It's pretty cool. I mean, like some people ask them like some weird stuff, and I'm like, all right, well, sure.
Yeah.
And then some people ask really like good questions. I'm like, oh, that's something I've never really thought about, or that could be a really unique perspective on that. So within the Discord community itself, that's kind of where I stay as a lurker. But
Cool.
External that, I am a board member, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool. Kind of gives me an outside different perspective of it, and I get to judge how well this podcast is doing,
Yeah.
how you guys are doing.
He's
The numbers.
1/6 our boss.
Yo, you're right. Yeah.
Well, because aren't you my boss?
I guess.
Is
Yeah.
that- is that like-
I'm your boss, but
So then I'm-
he's 1/6 my boss.
Yeah.
So he's 1/12
1/12
your
of your
boss.
boss. Yeah. So tighten it up, Levi.
I'm 1/12 nervous right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're a board member. I remember when Christian Influence was first like really incorporating, we were like, let's actually make this an official ministry, not just something that some of us do volunteer. Matt and I were kind of just like partners at the beginning, and then it was like, okay, we need to assemble a board. Jerry, you're going to be the executive director, like the employee running it, and then Matt was like, and I will be the board chairman. We need more board members, and so we each brought 2 to the conversation, like that we would recommend. And he brought 2. One of them is like his childhood best friend, or one of his best friends, right? And then he brought Tuji from our church, and then I brought you and Mike, and those were the ones that we presented as board members. It was great. Like we both brought people that were fairly involved already, and then some people that were kind of more on the outside but aware of it, and had been maybe involved here and there. And it worked out. It's worked out great. So I get to meet with Carson about once a month and talk about what we've been doing as a ministry, give a report, and then get to listen to the rest of them kind of talk about how we are going to continue moving forward, developing the ministry and what it's doing. And you guys get to more like solve the problems. Like I'm realizing now it's kind of like I will be confronted with problems that like, oh, the ministry has yet to develop this, maybe like certain bylaws or certain things like that. And then I am going to you guys, and then you guys are like, okay, well, we have to figure that out.
You present the problem and they solve it.
With certain things, or they present problems that I have to solve, right?
It goes both ways.
It
for
goes
sure.
both ways.
Have you had another board member on the podcast before? Other than
Mike.
Matt? Oh, okay, Mike. Yeah, that's
Mike's
right.
been on twice.
That's fair, yeah.
We've
pretty
never had
involved.
Tuji on. We should have Tuji.
Tuji. Yeah.
What?
No, I'm just kidding.
Tuji would be great to have on the podcast.
It would be so fun to have Tuji on the podcast. And then we've not had Kim. Now, we've had... No, yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you, before you were a board member, were on back in season
That's true,
2.
yeah. Yeah.
And then now you're on as a board member. But
Yeah, I mean, I think for the audience members, it's just, it might be good to hear that, that there is a board. Some people might not know that there is even a board for this kind of organization here. And kind of just a little bit behind the scenes is that we're always like praying for this and like praying for the people that are involved, the people that are leading this, and everyone involved. And so, I mean, that includes like all the listeners, right? We're praying for you guys, even if we don't know you by name or by Discord handle.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're praying for you guys. We pray for this organization that God leads it in a proper way, that gives wisdom and guidance to the people, ourselves, definitely a lot for how we make decisions, whether that's financially or if that's just kind of the direction of this ministry and how we want it to go. So a little behind the scenes on that for you guys. Just know that, there's people out there that are trying to make this the best that we can make it. We're not experts by any means, but this is definitely something that we believe and truly care about. So... there's my little plug for the board members out there.
No, that's great. I'm glad you said that. I think it's good for people to hear if they're very involved in Christian Influence, and that's why they listen to the show, or maybe they just listen to the show because they enjoy the show. They don't know anything, or they're not involved in the ministry at all in any other way. It's probably good. Like, it's not just we talked about last week some of the comments we received on that Rhett and Link episode, and actually one of them that we received was someone. You kind of dismissively refer to Levi and I as 2 white podcast bros, right? So like, especially the opinions of 2 white podcast bros, right? I think it's actually important for people to know, like, Christian Influence, and as a branch of that, this show, it's not like it's just this thing that we're calling a ministry, but it's just us 2 podcast bros going out and doing a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
and calling it ministry. There is an official ministry that has a board of 6 members who are doing their best to lead it and cultivate the organization under the will of God for the employees to then operate to the best of our ability for the glory of God.
Yeah.
And that's good. I'm glad that you said that. And so one of them, Carson, and then who actually the youngest board member then, because we're all the same age.
Little baby
Yeah.
board member.
That's me.
Little baby board member. I only say that because like so many of the things I'm doing, I'm the youngest. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that I
Look at
don't have
that.
to be you in the board or the youngest member there. But no, Carson's there because when I was praying about who to bring to Matt as an opportunity or as a possible board member, I was like, well, Carson's big computer guy, knows a lot of the tech stuff. That'll be a huge asset. Finance guy, pretty smart with his finances. I look at you as like one of the experts in my life to ask any financial question.
Oh, no.
You and 2G actually. But no, you're very smart. And but the most important thing that we had talked about, like other than skills and expertise that these people can bring to this sort of ministry, it's tech related or discipleship related, things like that. What's the most important thing when Matt and I were talking about, like what's the most important thing these people need to have, and it is an established relationship with God and a real care for glorifying God in their lives and seeing that other people do the same. And I was like, oh, well, that, and then the obvious expertise in computers and finance and stuff like that, Carson, one of those people.
Well, there you go. I didn't know
So-
that. That's good to hear.
Yeah, I think,
Hopefully I haven't disappointed you.
every day. But forgiveness is just
It's
kidding.
a huge thing.
So, well, then I thought, yeah, but we can forgive him for it. No, of course not. Of course not. No, and I think it was right around when we were kind of on the tail end of doing that weekly Bible study that we were a part of.
Yeah.
And I had so much fun. Like we hadn't really hung out and gotten to be around each other a whole lot since high school. But then we were all of a sudden around that part of our lives, we were doing this weekly Bible study, meeting regularly. And I loved getting to know you again better. And the thing that we were getting to know each other better around was, hey, we're here to iron sharpen iron. Like get like the reason we got back together is like, well, we were friends for so long and we've been friends, but like, why don't we get together and study God's word together?
Yeah. Centered it around Christ.
Exactly.
I missed
It's a
that.
huge shift. I know. Kids got in the way. I mean, having kids, it's kind of tough. But they're getting a little bit older, our
Yeah.
kids, and, our wives do a great job. Maybe we can sneak an hour in there. The guys just hanging out.
That's
I think we
something,
can do
yeah.
it, guys.
That's something that
We'll
Perry
restart it.
and I have talked about. She's talking about how, hey, I think I need to make sure, Jerry, you have like one day a month or something where you can make sure that you are fostering or whatever, however many days. But like, I just realized, hey, I don't really know if I'm fostering any friendships in my life outside of the ways I'm also doing it in conjunction with ministry. She's like, we kind of agreed that both of us need to make sure we are scheduling time to pour into just friendships and it not have to be something that's like, oh, I'm going to multitask and do that as part of my ministry work or whatever. Like, and so, yeah, I need to get back to, and it just got really easy not to do that, getting married and then having kids.
Yeah.
But if we don't do it now, and the only reason we do it is because we're like, yeah, our kids are starting to get a little older, so maybe it's easier. Well, then what's going to happen? Like, if and when we have more kids, then we're just going to stop then. Like, we need to establish it now and just get into the rhythm because we end up having more children. Perry and I want to have more children. I'm assuming you guys want more children.
We want to have another one around October 4th.
That's
Yeah.
pretty close to your birthday.
It is, and pretty close to your anniversary. That's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Same
I'll
day.
never forget
forgot
Carson's
about
birthday.
I forgot about that.
because it's
My
mine and
birthday.
Perry's.
Yeah. Same day as our anniversary.
It was his birthday first.
Which was amazing.
Was it?
so cool.
Didn't steal the thunder?
No, it was so cool.
Good.
You gave me a cupcake with a candle.
Yeah.
Which was pretty cool.
We had Ashley.
From Ashley. Shout out
Yeah.
to Ashley. Amazing
Ashley
cupcakes.
Kunders.
Amazing
Best
cupcakes.
cakes in the world. I texted her the other day because Perry and I were at Conditorai. It's a local like cake shop that's really good. And I was eating it, and as we're eating cake, I'm like, I'm just disappointed because it's not as good as Ashley's cake.
Dude, the frosting on the cupcake. It was something special. I don't remember
Really?
what it was, but it was just so good.
It was incredible.
It was
Really?
so good. Yeah.
It was it's called butternut, I think is the
Butternut?
flavor.
Mm.
And we
good.
went with that because my nickname from my dad growing up was butternut.
That's
and she
crazy.
was like, what are some flavors? She's like, here's the flavors I have. And we're like,
was
it should be
destined
that
to
one.
be
It
that
should be that
one
one.
for
And
sure.
The best cake I've ever had was my wedding cake made by Ashley. But yeah, we had asked her because it was your birthday. We're like,
So cool.
the cupcakes will be like chocolate and vanilla. Can you just make one that's birthday cake? I think it was,
Yeah,
right?
it
And
was,
she's
yeah.
like, yeah, I can do that. So we got to sing him happy birthday and give him. So you're the only one that got that type
That's
of
so cool.
cupcake.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Good.
Great memories.
That was
Yeah,
fun.
I won't forget your anniversary, which is cool. But yeah, October 4th, little boy coming, which will be crazy. It'll change things up, having 2 kids, going from 1 to 2 will be big, but
You'll be big.
I'll be big. It'll be a big change.
I'm going to swell up huge.
I might, who knows?
I don't think I can picture you.
Yeah.
No, I can't picture you.
I'd pay
We'll
to see
see.
it.
We'll see. But yeah, that's crazy. It'll be exciting.
That is so cool, man.
Um,
Roran's gonna have a little buddy.
I know. It's going to be so
Wow.
cool.
Yeah,
Growing up, learning from each other.
I think that'd be cool.
Yeah.
And you guys we'll have one of each now.
Yeah.
which is so cool.
Which is great because now we can have, it doesn't matter. As long as I got my boy and she got her girl, we're happy.
do you guys want more than 2 someday?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, I always wanted 4 because I come from a family of 4.
Yeah.
And she always wanted 3 because she came from a family of 3.
Makes sense.
And we were like, we both love our families. Our siblings are great. So those are the kind of numbers we kind of stuck out
Yeah.
with. So we'll see. We definitely wanted 2 at least, and then we'll probably go 3, maybe 4.
Okay, I was wrong then because when Perry and I saw the announcement that you guys were having a boy, I was like, "This is great." Because I remember you telling me that you guys, I must have been thinking you guys had said you wanted at least 2.
Yeah.
But I was remembering for some reason that you guys said you wanted 2, so you wanted one of each. But I guess you want more, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is great. Praise God. They wanted 2 and one of each, and that's what they got.
Yeah.
But I was mistaken. Which this is super cool. I think Perry and I want like somewhere in the 4 range.
Yeah.
Like give or take 1. Well,
between
more
4
like
and
between
16.
4 and 6.
Yeah.
6 is a lot, but that's kind of the cap of what we've talked about. 4 is kind of where we want.
My boss has 9 kids.
Does he really?
He does. And so it's one of those things where it's like, he says, if you, I think it's like after 3, maybe 4, they start taking care of each other.
That's what I've
And it's
heard.
like they learn extra responsibilities. You want your kids to be kids for a certain amount of time. They have to have that childhood, experience. I think that's important for everyone. But then after a while, it's like you just learn extra responsibilities.
Yeah.
You
a good
learn
thing
how to
to teach.
become an adult early on in
my-
life, which is good and bad, but yeah.
My grandparents, my granddad comes from, he's one of 10. And so by the time that the littlest ones were born, their first dolls were actually their niece and nephews that they were taking
A little
care
scary.
of.
A little
Sounds creepy when you say it.
Well,
Or
sure,
scary.
but like instead of walking around with a stroller and like a doll
Yeah.
in it, it was their niece or nephew.
Which is cooler because it's even more purposeful, right?
yeah. So, but like that much of a age gap
Yeah.
is wild.
Yeah, Jude was my first doll. Yeah.
Yeah. I had 2 older sisters, and so I
you were the
I did
doll.
have dolls.
What a doll. That's great.
Yeah, no.
No, I think it's great, like for kids to learn some responsibility and taking care of
yeah.
helping
Yeah.
take care of their siblings, and yeah, that's awesome. I didn't realize that. I'm so excited. Then
Yeah.
that'll be so cool, and we're really excited that you guys are having a little boy. Super cool.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. We're excited too.
it's gonna be awesome. We've been talking a lot about future kids' names lately, and there's one. If we ever have, we have no idea if we have more boys.
We're
what
gonna
they're be
steal it,
named, but
whatever it is.
oh no, I would be surprised if you. I really like a certain name, but Perry's not totally jazzed about it, so I don't think it'll happen, and that's okay. But I think it's really cool. I doubt you would steal it, but you know what? You can have it if we don't, because we might not use it. And I just think it's a really cool name for a boy. It's Ransom.
Ransom.
Oh yeah.
I think Ransom's really cool.
Ransom notes.
And
Little kid drugs.
Jesus
Ransom
paid the ransom
Ooh.
for us, so it's a gospel opportunity.
Yeah.
And I like the name Parker. I think Ransom Parker kind of sounds cool. I don't know, maybe.
Roran and Ransom. Are you locking into the
No,
double
we're
Rs?
not locking into ours. That is a coincidence because like the girl names we have are not our names. There's
Yeah.
no our names. But
We liked Roran.
did you?
We have Ren, right? So we've got our daughter Ren, 15
Mm.
months. She's great, adorable. I love her. And then but we also like the name Roman.
Roman is cool.
Ren and Roman sounds kind of cool, but
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, are we locking in the third one's going to be like, I don't know.
But Ren doesn't start with an R.
True, but it starts.
phonetically.
But phonetically it
it's
starts with
a
an R.
Ren and Roman.
Yeah.
So that's something we're trying to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, or you can just, like, that's what I was thinking. Like, we don't have to lock it in if we did that. Then you got 2 that are ours. Cool.
Yeah.
Then, like, it's kind of cool. They're these buddies, like, you know, Roaring and Ransom. That sounds so cool. Little terrors in the town, Roaring and Ransom. I think it's so cool. Little brothers named Roaring and Ransom. But then, you know, you can have the next one.
Roaring, Ransom, and Bartholomew.
Matthias.
Yeah.
Matthias.
He might feel a little left out.
Catherine. Roaring, Ransom, and Catherine.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Something different.
Something just totally,
maybe something different.
totally opposite. No, I think it's a cool name, but.
But it's also wild that random names, you know, that people just throw out there have such heavy weight to the history, you know, like
What do
the
you
name
mean?
Catherine.
Why is there heavy weight to the name Catherine?
Yeah.
Do you
Explain that,
not
Levi.
remember?
Catherine?
6th grade?
Oh, gosh. Wow. Okay, back to another old school
Yeah,
story, man.
I'm sorry. Just you being here and then the name
You
coming
guys just
out.
knew a Catherine or something?
Well, kind of. No, there was like, long story short, we don't need to get too long.
Yeah, we
into
don't
this,
need it, but-
there was a girl at one of those like events that really fell for one of our classmates.
Yeah,
Okay.
fell for my best friend hard.
Yeah. And so he was like
And-
trying to get rid of her the whole time.
Oh, I've heard
because
this
she was
story.
like tailing him.
Yeah,
heard this
and
story.
Some of-
yeah.
Fun
It was
stuff.
wild.
Yeah.
Fun stuff.
Anyway.
Well, Carson, I have a question for you.
Yeah,
This is
go
something
for it.
we like to ask guests that we've had on, especially guests that haven't been on before. But I've just been asking people this question lately in general because I think it's fun. Also, last night we were with a bunch of Perry's family, and I was talking to one of her stepbrothers. His name is Ben. We're talking about how, like, I think Christians should ask each other this more often because it helps to further highlight that all testimonies are important. And when we were talking, I was saying, like, you know, in a perfect world, like, everybody's dad, you know, would like raise them to be a Christian, right? Like everybody's parents would, not just their dad, but like their parents would. And so we're just talking about, like, because those are typically like the more mundane testimonies as we see it, but I think that those are good and we should normalize that. So the question for you, because I realized, like, yeah, this is one of our interview questions, and I've known you for like 10 years at least,
Yeah.
however long we've known each other. Is it,
A little more than that.
It's like
12 years?
11 or 12, yeah.
a lot.
Oh, it's 12 or 13, yeah. So whatever it is, right? 50 years we've known each other, and I don't know the answer to this. And so I should ask you, who's somebody in your life that God used to reach you with the gospel?
A lot of people.
Yeah, probably.
I mean,
a lot.
that's, right off the bat, I just think a lot of different people. You were just talking about dads. I would say that's big. I mean, my dad, I would say a lot more in the last 5-10 years, definitely really has kind of stepped into that role. And so just being his son, to see that is a whole new experience. And that's been really cool as well, too. Just to see him continue to grow in his relationship, you know, even as he's, you know, into his 50s and stuff. It's like he's still learning to strive after God and to read his Bible more and more and more, which is just beautiful to see. So yeah, definitely my dad. The conversations that we get to have has been huge. A lot of deep theological questions going back and forth with each other. Yeah, so my dad's definitely one of them.
That's cool. Like
Yeah.
your dad, it's like uniquely the witness that your dad has had in your life, it sounds like, is that you've seen like him as an established adult, like, right? Grow. Like that's kind of the witness he's had, is like by demonstrating growth, further growth in adult life.
Yeah,
That's
and I mean,
cool.
yeah, he's been a good, I think, leader in the household too. But it's also just like little things that he says that will just stick with me. And it's like, you know, every once in a while, you know, he'll give his nugget of wisdom, and whether I'll be like, yeah, I agree with that or I don't agree with that. But you know, and I'm learning. So a lot of times they'll be like, yeah, I'll probably learn that lesson later on in life. But at their kind of their anniversaries, the last biggest one was like their 30-year anniversary that they've been married. They kind of just gave a little bit of wisdom about marriage. And just one of the things that my dad said that, I mean, my wife and I talk about still to this day is just that it's never too early to start your relationship with Christ more with your spouse. And it's like, you know, don't wait to start reading your Bible with your spouse. Don't wait to start praying with your spouse, because they probably waited a little too long, and it was a little bit difficult in their marriage early on. Won't share too much, but, you know, just saying like, you know, to see that be like, oh, you know, at 30 years, we're really going to start prioritizing this has been huge.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And so Ivy and I are like, yeah, we should start focusing on that, you know, getting close to 5 years, right? You know, just start that early. And that's been big. Even my brother, I mean, like that's someone else I'd say is learning from your younger brother is kind of crazy.
Really?
And you guys,
I would agree.
just experiencing that, it's like someone watching them grow up, because my brother's a little bit younger than me, and watching him grow, become more mature in his faith, and asking good questions, and just setting really good examples of what a Christian man should look like is huge. So I'd throw my brother up there. I would also throw Mr. Garvey up there. He's definitely a big one.
Yeah.
We didn't get to have Matt as our Bible teacher, but we had Mr. Garvey, and Mr. Garvey was huge in my life. A lot of the stuff that he taught us, I still remember to this day, and it's just like, that's wisdom and stuff that he shared.
Yeah.
There was, I would say, one of the biggest moments in my life, like within my faith, was when we were at a worship night, and I was like really like struggling, I would say, like for the month leading up to it. And I had two older sisters that went, to the same high school and middle school and elementary school, and everyone loved them. And like, that was really cool, because it was like, oh, another Pemble. All the teachers were like, right on, we love your sisters, they're great. And for them to be like, oh, another Pemble, there just seemed to be like this expectation that I had to be perfect, or like I had to, meet the standards of my sisters, which it's not my sister's fault. It's not like even the teacher's fault. It was just something internally that I was like, how do I deal with this? How do I approach this? And I wanted to kind of present myself and kind of be who I wanted to be, and just kind of have people love me for me, and not just because, I come from a family that have amazing sisters. And so I was really struggling with that, and we got to worship night, and worship nights have always been huge. And I think, I'd encourage all the high schoolers, hopefully they still have worship nights. I'm not 100% sure.
They do.
Okay, good. That just go to the worship nights, spend that time to really, just open up your heart to the Lord, and just pray. And like, I was just praying in the back that the Lord would, show me, it started with, one of those, just, God, if you're real, show up kind of prayers. And I don't know where I stand on those. Like, I don't think they're great, but I also think that sometimes they're incredibly valuable, just because my own personal experience, it was like, God, if you're real, I want you to send someone back here to pray for me specifically about this thing that I want, that I want to know that God will love me for who I am, and not for someone that I'm supposed to be, and for all these, just like this list of things. And then I'm praying there, and I was like crying in the back of the gym. And then I look up, and I'm like, okay, I see Mr. Garvey. He's over there in the front. He's just, singing worship songs. And I'm like, I want you to send Mr. Garvey back here and pray for me. And I want him to say these things. And he did. And it was like absolutely ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those things where you're like, I'm just sitting there crying, and Mr. Garvey starts praying for me, and I'm like, oh shoot, this is real. Like God is going to use this. And then he starts saying, I thank you for Carson's sisters, but I just pray that Carson will know that he's his own person, that he doesn't need to stand up to these expectations, and just everything, like word for word was it. Yeah, I mean, I haven't shared that with a lot of people, but like that was one of those things that was huge in my life. And that really, I think, shifted my, life from just being like, oh, I'm going to go to church. I'm going to, attend these worship nights. I'm going to do all these things, and I'm going to read my Bible because it was homework to do, to something that this is something that I truly believe in.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
You said you like, sometimes you don't know how, like if it's always best or whatever to ask God for those kind of like sign moments.
Yeah.
I think, I just think a lot about Thomas. Like when Thomas is, like Levi and I've said this a lot, Thomas gets a bad rap, and I try not to call him Doubting Thomas, because I kind of feel bad. I almost feel bad that that's become one of the disciples, like one of the 12's. The thing we all know him for is that he did this thing, but when you look at how Jesus reacted to what he did, like I think that it shows us a formula in our life that when we're really struggling, we can ask God, like, God, please show me. And I don't think it's wrong that you said, like, God, have Mr. Garvey come back here and pray with me in this way. But I do think we have to remember, like, sometimes God still won't do it that way.
And if he doesn't show up that way, it's not that he's not real.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I was like, oh, if he doesn't do this, he's not going to be real. You know, like, and that was like, that's totally wrong. Because like, even if there's no total, like, I'm going to set the bar. If you're not there at this moment, at this time, say these things, then you're not real.
Yeah.
That's kind of,
because we're not God.
That's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, like,
for me to expect that, or for me to I don't know, back him into a corner, which he can't be backed into a corner, but that kind of mentality, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
And so I'd say, same thing as you, to where it's like, just put that into perspective, right? You know, we're allowed to question things, and I think we should question things to some degree, because like that's where God shows up, and God, I think, guides us through those things.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of the disciples, like as I'm reading through the Bible, they're like, I don't understand what Jesus just said.
Yeah.
Like I don't get it.
So they ask.
And so they're like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, but like, what do you really mean by that?
Yeah.
Which is crazy, because a lot of times I'll read my Bible, I'm like, I don't know what that means.
And then they'll still go away with the wrong interpretation of his explanation.
Sometimes,
I love when Jesus is like, how long must I suffer, you fools? You know, and it sounds mean, but it's like, we can be that way. You know, we can just be like, God is explaining something to us over and over again, and Jesus is like, I have explained this to you 1,000,000 times.
Yeah.
But the testament to his love is that he still does it again.
Yeah.
And I think a testament to God's love for you is that, like, sure, is it right for us to be like, God, I want you to respond to me on my terms and only my terms? Like, if we are acting that way, no, probably not. But like, it's not wrong for you to say like, God, I'm struggling. I need you to show me, right? And so a testament to God's love for you is like, in that moment, he did show you in exactly the way you were asking.
Yeah.
That's
Which is crazy.
incredible.
Which
That's
is crazy.
so cool.
Yeah.
That's so incredible. And does Mr. Garvey know that?
Oh gosh, I remember following up with him. Like, I was so nervous to talk to him about it, because I'm like, you know, I don't know. It's like, what was he feeling like on the other side of it? And so that's what I asked him. I was like, you know, I started the question like, so Mr. Garvey, how do you know when like the Lord is guiding you to do something? And he's like, a lot of times you don't. You know, it just sometimes it's this little subtle thing in your heart to be like, oh, maybe I should do that. And that was what he told me. He's like, I mean, I told him the story and I explained to him, and he's like, yeah, that's exactly what it was for me. It was one of those things where he was just like, it was just like, hey, I should go back there and pray for Carson. And I didn't know what to say. You know, he's like, I'm just going to go back there and pray for him. And I think that was another huge component of it, because like that's how we can apply that to our lives.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would ever get to be that for someone else, but it's one of those things to where if I feel like an urge in my heart and maybe I should go do something, to kind of just go do it.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of just frees me up to be like, okay, who cares if I maybe look like a fool or say the wrong thing? Because you never know when it is going to be one of those life-changing things, or if it could be.
I do want to let you know that I know that you know a lot about it, but I don't know if I've said it, but you've been that person to me during middle school and high school when I was going through a lot of rough stuff. And you had been there and spoke God into my life.
That's cool.
I don't know if I've gotten into all of that on the podcast or not, but you've been that for me. And
well, thank you for saying that. I mean, like I said, that's not me. I mean, that's God, though.
Yeah.
Which is so.
But God's used you in that way, at least in my life. Yeah. So I'm, you know, at least one time.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
I think it's important. That's why I asked, like, have you talked to Garvey about that?
Yeah.
Because what an opportunity. Because like in our lives, you know, we were saying, how do we know sometimes, like when it's God prompting us to do something, and that still small voice in there, right? Like the Bible says, and just go do it. You know, like, we should test those things to the ability that we can. Sometimes, like, is it right? Okay, if it's right, then why would I not do it, right? Yeah. It's like, is it something that is right? Then of course I should do it, and trust that maybe I don't. And I think for me, this is gonna be my challenge. I often want to know, well, exactly how will it go? Because then I can know, like, if it's worth doing or not. And the thing that I struggle with is like what you just said, like, well, you know, if I think I should do it, and I should only think I should do it if it's something that's right, then I should just do it. And we trust God with the growth, right? If it's a seed, if it's water, whatever, we trust God with the growth. And I think that something that we can forget to do, though, too, is go to the people that did do that in our life, and we can recognize, like, you can recognize clearly Mr. Garvey responded to that, and to tell them thank you, or to tell them like how much it did impact you, because like you were saying, you don't know maybe if you've had the opportunity to do that for someone else, and often we probably have and have no idea.
Yeah.
And sometimes God gives us those little windows, those glimpses into like, hey, you have been a faithful servant, and here is someone that I have used you to help. And And that can just really be what keeps driving us, right? To keep doing it. And we should keep doing it whether or not we feel that way or not. But then I think the onus ends up being on us when we've experienced that, to like go back and I think just tell people like, hey, God used you.
Yeah.
You know.
And I thank you for saying that, because like I remember when you did tell me that, like the first time.
Okay.
And I was like, wow. Because I mean I had no idea. And that was beautiful. It really was. It was cool, I think, for me to be on like the receiving side to hear that, and then for me to be like, okay, so that's what God's voice sounds like a little bit.
Yeah.
And it probably was the same thing for Mr. Garvey. It's probably the same for a lot of people. But like, if you would have never told me, I would have never known. I would have been like, all right, maybe that was something, maybe it wasn't. So that's really cool.
Yeah. That's epic. I mean, it really is.
It's
but
epic.
also like I just got reminded of this story that I learned when I was at Multiply School. I'm not going to do it fully justice, but this guy felt like he should go out to the street corner and just street preach at this mall, right? So he stands on a box and he just starts preaching the gospel. And everybody around him just ridicules him or doesn't do anything at all. Not a single person came up to him and talked to him about anything. All he was doing was preaching it out. The only time that anybody even remotely said anything towards him, it was just ridicule, yelling at him, and like, why are you even doing this? You're ruining my day. And then, but a lot of those people had gone back to their hotel and had like found a Bible in their dresser and had been like, oh, maybe what that guy was saying wasn't, just a load of terrible stuff. Started reading it, and there were some people that got incredibly moved by it, but he never saw it. And then cut 25 years later, there was this big convention that people were having with a bunch of new churches that were starting in this specific area, and all these people were there, and then they started talking about how they sharing their testimony. And they were talking about, hey, I was going through this mall doing whatever. I was cheating on my wife, had this girl with me, and then I heard this guy saying all these terrible things. I started yelling at him, but then when I went back to my hotel that night, I couldn't be with that woman because of those things were just pressing on my heart.
Wow.
And then he turns to the Bible, becomes Christian. Then another person was like, hey, was that in this city around this time? Because that's when I had that same thing. And there were 20 something people at that convention that are all starting churches that had come to Christ or come back to Christ because of this guy preaching the gospel in a mall and just getting ridiculed for it.
Wow.
And then they sent some people to track him down and be like, hey, you've influenced all these people. Can you come and speak at this new event that we're going to have?
That's so cool.
in honor of that? And they come to his door, and he's just, at home. He's no longer employed with the church. Totally gave up on God entirely.
Whoa.
Because he had been doing that for, I think he did it for like, it was like 3 or 5 years. He had been doing that and saw absolutely nothing. So he gave up on God, gave up on anything. And then when they started telling them that, he was just bawling and crying because he never saw
fruits of his labor.
Any fruits of it. And he thought that it was just all going to waste, which it hadn't been. He ended up by doing what God had told him to do. All of these other people were starting churches and were reaching other people with the gospel.
It's that small glimpse of like the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Of like the whole quilt analogy. Like, so everyone's got these threads that we're all weaving together, right? It's like that moment when you get to step back and see a little bit of it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And
the quilt.
It's a beautiful quilt.
But he ends up coming back to the faith because, he can now see, but it was such a incredible thing that God used him for. But he never saw it. Yeah. And he just gave up because he couldn't see that. And, it would have been a tragedy had no one tried to reach out to tell him, hey, you spoke into my life and you spoke into all of these other people's lives.
That's cool. All right. Okay. I got a quick story here.
Yeah.
Because it reminded me of this. And I got to put this out there somewhere on the internet just in case if someone's the receiving end of it. It's one specific guy.
Whoa, okay.
So this is crazy. But we were in college. We were down at OSU in Corvallis. And we were getting together just as a group. I was in a house full of like other Christian dudes. And we had just a night where we were just all praying together and being like, reading our Bible, trying to just hear from the Lord. And we were all just praying. And I just had a feeling, that we should not be inside. We should just go out and see if there's somebody that we can talk to. It was like 11 o'clock at night, but it's a college town, so people are out.
Yeah.
And one other guy, he was praying, I just had the same feeling that we need to go out and we need to stand on, the corner of Van Buren and some other street, and someone's going to show up at exactly, I think, 11:15. And I'm like, oh, all right.
That's specific.
But I'm like, if this is the Lord, we can't say no to this. We just got to go. And so we kind of bundle up a little bit. It was cold. And we go out there and we stand on that corner and there's no one. We don't see anybody. And we're like, this is quieter than a normal night. Which is
the opposite.
Crazy. Total opposite. And it's 11:13 and we see someone way down there walking our way. And we're like, okay, this could be our guy. It's 11:14 and 30 seconds. He's 30 seconds out. We're like, this is our guy. This is the person we're supposed to talk to. And he shows up and he just walks right up to us and he says, he curses, just an explicit right off the bat. And he's like, see you boys. And then just walks off. It's was that our guy? And we're like, hey, can we pray for you? And he's like, nope, I'm good. See ya. Peace. And
so he walks to you and then
just says that and then just leaves. And I'm like,
angel, clearly.
And I'm like, I guess that was not the word of God. But if you're that guy, that one specific guy, and it changed your life, let me know. But we were like, oh, well, maybe the lesson we learned that God has a sense of humor or something. Because we were cracking up. It was an incredible bonding experience for that group of guys.
Yeah.
And or it was just nothing,
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like that happens too, where maybe we put something in our mind, but
yeah, sometimes I think we do. I don't know if that was, but I think sometimes we do go we get kind of excited.
Yeah.
And we're like, this is what God's telling me. And I think sometimes what he tells us is sometimes I don't tell you that way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't. But also, were you obedient to what you thought was God? So then that's a good thing.
We're we have to go. If anything happens, great. If nothing happens, oh well.
Yeah.
So.
That's great. And
go.
God used it clearly anyway, because you guys were united in that. And you guys we're gonna, if this is God, we're gonna respond to him appropriately.
Yeah.
And you got to be obedient together. But that's so funny. That's so funny. Now I wanted to say this, what we're talking about goes really well with our theme verse, Hebrews 3:13. And especially Levi, when you were talking about that guy, I think that story is a good reminder of why when Hebrews 3:13 says, exhort one another each day as long as it's called today, that none of you may become hardened by sin's deception, right? That guy was being hardened by the deception of sin, right? So long went by where should he have remained faithful? And sure, yeah, we make mistakes, right? And the mistake that guy made was going, what I did didn't matter, and he falls away from a relationship with God. But something that could have helped, and this verse reminds us that we have a responsibility in the lives of other believers. Maybe if some of those people had affirmed that good action in him sooner, it could have changed that, right? Yeah. But what matters is they did, and it did change it eventually, right? The time that went by, so they were obedient, right, to being I need to exhort this guy that did a good thing, he was doing the Lord's work, literally. I need to go thank him for being obedient to God. Change that guy's life, right? And so for us, well, how can we just not let it get that far? If somebody is clearly obedient to God and it plays a role in your life, let's not let it go 20 years. Let's tell them right away.
Yeah.
And or as soon as you're realizing this is somebody that God used in my life. It's one of the reasons that's one of my favorite questions to ask people is because a good follow-up I think sometimes can be that's why I basically did this, but have you thanked that person? Because I think some of us will go, oh yeah, I should know that. And so we do think of that person very well, very highly. We tell other people about that person. But like, I know for a long time in my life, I didn't even consider going to that person and thanking them. And then somebody asked me that, like, when I was telling someone about a person in my life that was really important, like, have you ever thanked that guy? And I was like, no. And then it mattered to him when I said, hey, you played a huge role in my life. Oh, I didn't realize that.
That's cool.
And clearly, like, that guy, he played a huge role in like the lives of at least 20 people, and he had no idea.
Yeah.
And he needed to know. So, yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad that you've played that role in Levi's life. And I mean, you've played a huge role in my life as a friend. I'm not going to force it. I can't remember a time this in high school where I'm like, Carson was the angel God sent. No offense, not that you aren't, but I couldn't remember. Like, God uses different people in different people's lives at different times, and I think that's great. But I know that as we got older, like, that is something that mattered to me. You reaching out and being like, hey, we should reconnect, and the reason is, let's study the Word of God together. That meant a lot to me. And God really used that time. Because it was when Perry and I were dating. And I was like, I had this Bible study I was going to, and I was just trying to pour myself into Scripture. And I remember how much I valued at that time. Like, I need brothers who I'm going to spend time with, and we are talking about what God is teaching us. And not just in this environment too, where I'm talking about it and we're talking about it with, like, for people to listen to. That was just like, this is just time, in a quiet room with 4 or 5 other guys and who are all friends. And we are sometimes like contesting one another. Like, are you sure about that? John Cena. And like,
which is good. Which is
good.
healthy. I mean, I think there should be healthy pushback on a lot of things just to spark that conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of why, the Bible was, or like, I was going to say the Bible, but the books of the Bible written to specific churches, and like the church would then read it together as a community, instead of just being like, oh, here, you read this, and then you pass it off, you read it this, and pass it off, you read it. Because like, we can read the Bible and we can just kind of interpret it incorrectly just for ourselves. But then if we have those people in that community and that church, and people around us to be like, hey, what does this mean to you? What do you think it means? It really helps. And I think that's why iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, it helps us not to get into our individual echo chambers. Like our own, being like, oh, I get this. Yeah. Well, sometimes we think we get it, and we're so wrong. Yeah. But like, you have a lot of people in the same room, you can be like, oh no, I see what you mean. I misread this or misunderstood this or didn't have that context. And yeah, I think that's really true. I've done that plenty of times where I'm like, I think I totally get this. And then I go and I sit with some of my friends, I'm like, oh man, hang on a second. I totally forgot about that other thing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm glad I didn't teach about that or anything.
Yeah. Reminds me of Proverbs 18:17. The first to state his case seems right until his opponent begins to cross-examine him.
Ooh, that's so good.
It's a good proverb.
Yeah.
I got to use that sometime.
Until his opponent starts to cross-examine. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. Wasn't there a time, speaking of like that time that we spent doing that kind of with each other, wasn't there a time where you said that you were thinking something about the Bible and you're like, how would Jerry argue with me about this or something?
So good. So good.
I feel like I remember you, because I remember
told
thinking
you
like,
about that.
I think that's a compliment.
Yeah.
Because you're like, how would Jerry disagree with me or something like that?
No, but it was, let me share that story really quickly. Sure. Just because it was one of those things that I was having a long argument, debate, discussion. Our family is very kind of open about those. And my wife and I were talking about these, and I don't remember what the exact topic was, which is kind of a bummer. But we were driving up to Portland, and on the way back, we were having this like long conversation, like, what do you believe about this? What do you think about this? And she was like, I believe this. And I'm like, well, but what about this verse that says this? And then, I was like in the middle of making my argument, and then which was weird because this is gonna sound crazy, but I was like, I hear Jerry's voice in the back of my head,
disagreeing with you, or
a little bit disagreeing with me, but it was like you were just making a broader point. Okay. I was like, I think the line should be drawn here, and like maybe they should draw the line here, and like we were trying to get into the details of something. Yeah, and I remember like Jerry saying, well, actually, you should draw the line way earlier, because like this is why would you even try to draw the line past this point? And it was just like, I hear your voice so clear, and I'm like, Ivy, you got to hear this. Yeah.
Are you hearing what I'm hearing?
Grabbing my whole perspective on this because I think Jerry's right. And then I was like, Jerry, I got to tell you something later.
No, I totally heard me.
Yeah.
You called me and were like, just so you know, you told me all that. Like, we're having this conversation.
Sure,
you're like,
you're so right.
You're like, do you agree with the Jerry in my head, basically?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you know what's crazy? I think this is a testament to how much, I guess, clearly how well you know me, because I would agree with the version
It was
of me.
spot
In your,
on.
it was. I was like, because you first asked me, hey, what do you think about this subject matter? And then I'm like, I guess, and I was like, well, I'm on the spot here, but maybe these few thoughts. And you're like, okay, I gotta tell you something crazy. I gotta tell you. That's exactly what I thought.
That's incredible.
That's what I thought you would think. And no, and like, I didn't ask you to share that because it's like, because I think, oh yeah, no, I know what's best. That's one of my favorite stories.
I love that.
To illustrate that, like, hey, talk to your friends about the Bible.
Yes.
Have also, so a huge thing with Christian influence, it's like, we say this all the time, like, if you're a Christian and you're alone and you don't go to church, man, go get involved at a church.
Absolutely.
Like, get involved with Christians. And, you know, if you're isolated on the internet, get involved with us. We want to talk about the Bible. And remember, like, you can talk about the Bible and have your own assumptions and understandings, and you can engage with people that have different understandings. And it doesn't mean you have to hate each other.
Absolutely.
You can engage, right? And that you need to be talking about these things, because if you don't, then you do have whole groups of people that just end up with the wrong idea of things. Or, like, if you can't engage, then you both just think that because you think differently that you're against each other. And then, like, you can have whole groups of people that think the other group is against them, and they think the other group is against them, and they're not. Mm-hmm. You're just like, you have one conversation and realize, wait a second, actually, we're bros. Like, or you can have individuals. Like, I've talked about this before. Byron and I, for literally years, thought the other one hated the other one.
Yeah, it was wild.
And then, so we weren't talking to each other, and then had one conversation. We were like, wait, you're not mad at me? No. Wait, you're not mad at me? No. Why aren't we friends? I don't know. Why are we not friends anymore?
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, I would say find a way to enjoy that. That back and forth, because I would say some of the most fun I have in conversations is with you guys or with Matt, where we're on opposite sides, or maybe just not exactly on the same page on something, and maybe just rib each other a little bit, like, you know, just have fun with it.
Yeah, have fun.
Learn how to
with it.
enjoy it.
Yeah. I think some people really enjoy argument because they really enjoy trying to be right. But then where that falls apart is, like, when they can't convince someone, then they fall apart. Yeah. Like, they start to, like,
upset.
Then they're upset.
That wasn't fun. I'm upset, you know.
Yeah. So if you have to, like, I think what Shib said is really wise. Like, enjoy the act
discussion.
of it. Enjoy the discussion.
Yeah.
Because if you're not enjoying the discussion, then what you're probably enjoying is the being right, and eventually, or the being convincing, and eventually you may not be.
Yeah.
And then that's going to be tough. So if you just enjoy the conversation and always go into it being like, I could be wrong, even though I very much think I'm right. I could be wrong. Then you'll always enjoy it. Because you'll enjoy it when you're persuaded. You'll enjoy it when you're persuading. But yeah, I love that. I thought it was so funny when you called me and I was like, and it was encouraging. It was
I had
encouraging.
to tell you. Yeah.
It was so funny. And then I remember seeing Ivy at some point and was like, or she might have been on the phone or something, and she's like, that's exactly what he said. Like Carson was just sitting there, turned over and goes, you got to hear what Jerry's saying. What do you mean what Jerry's saying? So Jerry's in here and he's saying this.
Something along those lines.
Is there any other voices?
Any other voices? Well, as long as the Jerry in your head is saying what I would say, then you're not crazy, I guess.
Voices.
It's not someone else. It is me. I was whispering into a little thread, and you were hearing it.
I will hear, like, I don't know. It's probably just because I have some, like, of those debate kind of conversational discussions, you know, with my dad and my brother. Like, I will hear their voices, or I'll hear my cousin's voice, which is like a really good perspective to have, like, on an opposing, you know, view that I would normally take.
Yeah.
And so I think I also kind of naturally will go into that devil's advocate, which I think kind of started when I spent more time with Levi. I will make a disclaimer for my family and friends. Like, blame this guy. He always plays the devil advocate, and that rubbed off a little bit on me.
Dude, that's so all what high school was. Every single time that they had something, I was just devil advocating the other side.
He could spin any argument, like, and make you be like, oh.
Well, Levi loves
maybe
to advocate for the devil. That's why. I think that's such a funny phrase that we use.
Devil's advocate.
The devil's advocate.
That's crazy if you think about it.
But the point is that you're like, because it's important, like, well, hang on, I think this is right, and if we are right, great. But it is important to, like, look at it from the other point of view, because, like, maybe it needs refining, or maybe it's totally wrong, right? Yeah. No, I think that's good. I think Chad told me one time, Chad, our old pastor, you know, he's not old. Our pastor before Matt was our pastor, was like, I think it was when I was stepping into leadership at the church. He's like, you know, he said it in a way that I was like, I don't know if that's a good thing. He's like, I'm really glad you're in leadership because I just know you're the guy that's not going to let, you're not going to let a decision that seems right just be made. He said something like that, and I was like,
what do you mean by that?
Unpack that for me, Chad. And he's like, well, no, you will make sure that every angle of it has been thought about just to ensure that it is the right one. Because what if it isn't? I was like,
that
also still sounds like I'm annoying.
Yeah.
That sounds like I'm an annoying person. He's like,
you
no,
pick
I
apart
value
every decision that we make.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And hardcore.
He's like, no, I value it. And I think it's important. There needs to be one guy in there that's at least doing that. I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Sure. But it's that, like, I think we try and do that a lot. Like, well, what if, just to be careful.
But also a big part of this is that it also helps you not develop, it helps you cultivate humility.
Yes.
Having discussions with other people, having arguments about things that are there, being open-minded so that when you are convinced, having the ability to be humble in those things helps you for the future, to stay humble, because God, it's a virtue to be humble.
Yeah.
We're called to be humble in our presence, because if we're too prideful on things, that's basically every single sin comes down to a certain amount of pride that you've got.
Yeah.
And so practicing humility in those ways, because I remember a lot of times being in an argument with somebody and then absolutely figuring out, oh, I'm an idiot. I was actually 100% wrong.
Yeah.
But I have to save face and get them to a point that they feel like they've actually convinced me.
Yeah.
And I've just not been an idiot this entire time.
Yeah. I think when I noticed that, sorry.
Or you can also go the route of trying to gaslight them into thinking that you were always on their side.
The Matt route, or Matt says that a lot. He'll be like, he's like, not my proudest moments. I have realized that I'm wrong. And when he said that, I was like, oh, I've done that too. Whereas you realize you're wrong. You're like, how can I tailor this conversation to make it come full circle and make them think that they misunderstood that I agreed with them the whole time? But no, I remember, like, I've been misunderstood often as I am a human being, so I can be prideful. But I have been misunderstood when I'm trying to do that sometimes, as though I am being prideful sometimes, and even misunderstood myself. But like, because I'm asking those questions, people are like, so you just think you're right. And I'm like, whoa. I think in my life, when this started, when I started being that way more, was when I was like 19, maybe 18, and Cyrus and I, my youth pastor, were studying humility, and because I had been really prideful a lot, and I think he recognized that. I was like, let's talk about humility. And I had been praying, like, God, you're showing me that I'm kind of a proud jerk a lot, and I just think I'm right and don't care whether I'm not right or not. I was just like assuming I'm right in a lot of things, and whether I was or wasn't, like, didn't matter. It's like, that's the wrong attitude to have. And I had been praying, God, just change the way I think about things. And I think he started changing in me, like, hey, think about things, like, ask a lot of questions, and it goes too far sometimes, but ask a lot of questions, even of why you're doing the things you're doing and things like that. And so now I've swung completely the other way in my adult life, is like probably too often asking why I do things. But that is when I think I noticed it change. So I'm glad you brought that up. Like, I remember him being like, Jerry, we need to sit down and I want us to read this book together. And it's called Humility and Absolute Surrender by Andrew Murray. It's on our shelf over there. Amazing book. It's over 100 years old. Awesome book. But then we're walking through a lot of scripture, and he's teaching me, like, what is humility? And he made me answer that, and I probably gave some bad answer. But then he's like, well, the answer to what humility is Christ. If you understand the gospel and you understand who Christ is, you will know what it means to be humble. And I remember reading that book, and it says things like that pretty frequently. And then we're just reading through, and it made me realize at like 19, I had never really read through and understood the life of Christ very well. But yeah, no, humility really is the answer to like living the Christian life. It's like the first step, like in everything. How do you live the Christian life? Well, start Humility. Like start humble, and then from there work on it, but you have to start with humility, which makes sense given what you were just saying, like how a lot of sin starts with pride.
Yeah.
A lot of righteousness starts with humility. And well, I would dare to say all sin starts with pride and all righteousness starts with humility. But yeah.
I know we're probably getting long on the podcast, but
Yeah,
I do want to say, like,
say it.
Just with that, it's like I think a lot of people outside of the Christian faith will view Christians as like, oh, these people should have it perfectly figured out. Or maybe that's my perspective of it. I don't know. But it's like when people view Christians and Christians are just like sinning and messing up, I think that they're like, oh, if they're supposed to be the ones that have it all figured out, and they're not, they can't even follow their own rules.
Right.
It's like, why would I follow that?
Yeah.
And so I see that. It's like the whole point, I think, of the Bible is like acknowledging that we are sinners and that, like you said, that starting point is being like, I know how much I've sinned. You guys don't know how much I've sinned. You guys don't know how terrible a person I am. Yeah. But it's like, I know. Yeah. And I think that that's what the Holy Spirit is like, okay, I'm being a little convicted on this. I know that this is, one, just not making me, any closer to God. Like it is separating me from Christ. And I know that this sin is, ruining relationships or whatever it is. Yeah. Right? And so it's like, I have to admit that to myself, which is, some people will do that. You don't need Christian faith to acknowledge that you've made mistakes. But it's the first step, I think, like what you're saying, within Christianity, be humble to admit that, to be like, okay, this is something that I need to, confess. I need to talk to people about this. I need some accountability in my life. I need to then understand that it's not okay that I do these things, but it's okay because Christ was willing to die on the cross for that and to forgive me of those sins. Yeah. And I think that's that starting point, is like admit, what is it? I don't know what they say. Like half of the battle is admitting that you have a problem. Something like that. Yeah, yeah. And so it's that humility, I think, that really does start it. And that's where I see it as like, it's so hard for people outside the Christian faith to maybe get to that point, or maybe not. I don't know. But for me, that's where I see it as like, okay, they also need to understand that I'm a terrible person, that I'm struggling, that I'm not perfect, and that I'm only made perfect through Jesus Christ. Yeah. And I think that's huge for me.
Yeah, because like to understand and have faith, to understand and believe in the good news, the gospel, you have to know the bad news, right? Like they say, right? And so that bad news is being humbled and remembering that you don't have it figured out. And it is ironic that like the perception often can be of Christians, oh, they are claiming to have it all together, to know it, how to live, but yet they're still messing up, so I'm not going to have anything to do with it. No. What Christians should be claiming is we don't have it all figured out. We don't know it all. Yeah. But we are in a relationship with the one who does. That's the point. Mm-hmm. Like the one who does, he is making the decisions for us, and we're being obedient because we will admit we don't have it all together. So if you're a Christian or like you're not a Christian, you're hearing Christians say like clearly claim, no, I know it all, I have it all together, follow what I do. Don't listen to that person. Yeah, they need to be humble. Yeah.
That's where they may Christian, be a believer. Hypocrite comes from, and people are like, oh, Christians are just hypocrites.
Yes,
and that
which is they need to be humbled. So if you are acting that way, I encourage you, ask the Lord to change your heart and humble you, and
that's a huge
you
ask.
Don't. It's a huge
ask. But we all need to ask that, even like
every day. I mean, that's why like you hear people say, preach the gospel to yourself every day.
It's a dangerous ask too.
It's a dangerous ask, but you better mean it.
Oh yeah.
Better mean it. If you're asking God humble me, like if God is telling you, dude, you're prideful, you feel like you have it all together, and sure, maybe you know a lot. God has blessed you with a lot of knowledge, and you're right often, but you will not always be right. Yeah. And if you need to be humbled, dude, I encourage you to pray and ask God to humble you and be ready for it. Yeah. And really being humble about something is knowing like, okay, I'm going to respond correctly then to God's correction.
And prepare yourself for how that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because it's most likely will not be the way that you expect it to be.
It's not going to be the way that you expect it to be.
It won't always be easy. But we need to be humble. Yeah, it will be worth it. Yeah. So, I think anything else that we want to say? Carson, anything you want to plug?
Yeah. Plug.
Are you starting a new business?
Am I starting a new
business? Cupcakes, inspired by the wedding.
Inspired by the wedding. Ashley, I'm going to plug Ashley. I'll plug
Ashley
wife.
Kunders. Great cakes.
Can I plug my wife for just being an amazing person?
Of course.
All right, shout out to Ivy. You're amazing. I love you. Thank you for raising our daughter perfectly.
Well, perfectly.
Okay, maybe not perfectly. But
Whoa, not perfectly?
okay, so very well, but needs improvement.
Let's
No, I don't know.
advocate this for you. Very well, but needs improvement. That's why. Yeah, just kidding.
No, shout out to my wife. Shout out to my family. Shout out to you guys for doing this. I mean, no, I'm going to take a step back. On Sunday, I had a really deep conversation with my family, and it was beautiful. And I broke down into tears and was crying. And I mean, I've already mentioned that once. I'm kind of an emotional person, so I will cry a little bit more than probably most people do. But
can you cry right now?
No, not on demand. But yeah, we had a very serious conversation. And one of the things, it was like, my work is difficult right now. It's going through a lot of change, and there's kind of just this weight, of, okay, they're probably going to let my team go. They're probably going to let me go. And I don't want that to happen. Obviously, I want to take care of the people that work for me.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, now that I know I'm going to be let go, most likely, how can I take every opportunity to witness to the people at work about Christ? Just kind of subtly plug some conversations, or even not plug it, just be like, what are you doing this weekend? And normally I'd be like, oh, well, I'm not going to mention church because I don't want to ruffle any feathers. But just to be like, oh, on Sunday I'm going to go to church with my family, and then I'm going to, do this afterwards. And so just saying those things that I would normally kind of hide, it's encouraged me to become a little bit more of a witness at church. But one of the things was that you guys get to do this for a job, and I'm a little bit jealous of that. But it's also just, you guys are doing an amazing job. Whether you know it or not, and whether people encourage you enough, but just all the things that are behind the scenes that people don't know that you guys do is huge.
Thanks, man.
No, yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to, boost you guys' ego right here, but no, seriously, I do think that you guys are doing the Lord's work, and I think that you guys are good servants to pray about it, before every podcast, and to I hope that you guys know that you're doing the Lord's work, and like we kind of talked about, whether you see its impact or not, I truly believe it's having a bigger impact than you guys probably know.
Thanks, man.
So I'm going to plug you guys. I'm going to plug this podcast that you guys are listening to right now. So share it with people. I'm going to plug the Discord. As a board member, I'm going to plug it for the numbers and for the direction. But seriously, yeah, join the Discord. Get involved within that. There's some channels for debates. I know we kind of talked about that.
Yeah.
Join that channel. I'm gonna plug a book by John Mark Comer. We didn't talk about it, but just called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I think that's been a big book ever since kind of college for me. So I'm going to plug that book. And then you guys may have noticed that there's a tiny little gold thing up here. No, I'm just kidding. No. They did ask me to bring in something, and I brought in this tiny little Bitcoin up here. It's obviously, a physical representation of it, but I had to plug it in the podcast. I am a Bitcoin believer.
Bitcoin believer.
Bitcoin believer.
But no, I mean, that's kind of just a joke, but
yeah.
But yeah, see, those are my plugs.
There you go.
I don't got anything specific.
Longest list of plugs we've ever had.
Yeah.
Wow, my bad.
No, I'm just kidding.
They're like, wrap it up, dude.
No,
wrap it up.
Of course not. No, that was. I think that's great. Thank you for saying that. No, I'm kidding. The point of that, we have somebody on. We want to give them a bit of a soapbox. Be like, hey, what are you involved in that you want? You can.
It's like the hot ones. Check out. Into this camera, this camera.
That's where the inspiration.
Tell them what's going on in your life.
Exactly.
You guys are Sean Evans from Hot Ones.
Yeah, dude. Best interview that's ever been.
He was on the show?
No. Interviewer. He's an incredible interviewer.
I was like, the best episode
dude,
we had.
Yeah, it was pretty great. Yeah, you missed it?
Yeah. No, he is an incredible interviewer, I think.
Yeah, he's great.
He's awesome. But, well, great episode. Carson, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Like he said, he did it for us. Join the Discord, discord.gg/Christian Influence. You can engage in the community there. And then if you want to leave a comment down on this video, if you want to discuss some of these subjects with us, or go to the Discord and talk to us there. And there's other people there you can talk to about the show or about other various things. Get involved in Christian community on the internet there. And then if you want to check out our other show, Of Lore and Legend, it's a D&D podcast. You can listen to it. You can find it, search for it, Of Lore and Legend. There's usually a link somewhere. Actually, it's on our YouTube channel.
Yeah,
boom. Go find it there.
Boom.
Or you can just Google it, right?
Or
because it's like Google. The number one.
If you Google Christian
D&D
podcast,
number one.
Up
Isn't that crazy?
First. It is pretty crazy.
It's wild.
Cheers. Good job, guys.
Episode 30 just dropped.
Hey, episode 10. Well done. We did it.
Hey, good job, guys.
We love you very much.
Thank you guys for having me.
Roll the outro.
That's it. That's all of it.